All right, so for this lesson, we're on to 3.3, where we're going to look at graphing slope and y-intercept. So essentially just graphing our equation of a line. So the first thing that we're going to do is recalling our slope equation, which we figured out last lesson, is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So in order to calculate slope, it means that we must know 2 points on that line. Otherwise, we don't have enough information for y2 and y1 and x2 and x1. Remember that y equals ax plus b, where a represents the slope and b represents the y-intercept. This is what we call the slope y-intercept form. We are going to go over what's called the standard form of a line in another lesson, but we are just going to be focusing on the slope y-intercept form for today. So when we are graphing linear relations, one thing that you want to keep in mind is that we are always going to start by identifying our slope and identifying our y-intercept. So based on this equation, I know that my slope is 3 over 2 and my y-intercept is -3. I'm just going to change the color of that. -3 and circle out in there so you can see where I got that from. So our first step is to identify those two values. Our second step is that we are going to start with our y-intercepts. This is our starting point. Oftentimes you will hear it referred to as your initial value. But anytime you are graphing this line, I want you to start with the y-intercept. In this case, I know it's -3, so I can start right here. Then we are going to graph the other point using rise over run. So it's essentially rise over run. So given a slope of 3 over 2, I know that means my rise is 3 and my run is 2. So my second point would be here. I can plot a line with just 2 points. That being said, if you want to be sure, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, you can add another couple of dots, whichever makes sense to you. Add my line, add my 2 arrows, and then I am done. We go on to the next one. We are again going to identify our slope, which here is -3. We could also call that -3 over 1. So we have our rise and our run, and we know that our y-intercept is +7. Remember, this means it points down. So we're again going to start with our +7 or our y-intercept, which is our initial value. And then I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3 because it's a negative value over 1. And our second point is here, down 1, 2, 3 because it's a negative value over 1. So our next point is here. Draw a line through them. This is going to be a terrible line. Let me retry that. Awesome. Draw my arrows and I'm done. Another example here, we have 4 over 7x. So we know that 4 over 7 is our slope. That's our rise over our run. Our y-intercept, there is nothing here, so we assume it's +0. So our y-intercept is 0. So I'm going to start by plotting my y-intercept. And then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My second point is here. Connect my dots. I'm just going to move that up a bit. There we go. Add my arrows, and I am done. So when graphing linear relation in slope y-intercept form, your starting point should always be your y-intercept. Every single time, start with your y-intercept. The rise of the slope tells you how far you have to move up, if it's a positive number, or down if it's a negative number. And the run tells you how far to move to the right. Remember, if the slope is a whole number, we can write it as a fraction with a denominator of 1. So if it was 4, that's 4 over 1. If it was 5, that's 5 over 1. Awesome. And that's everything for this lesson. It's a nice, quick, short, easy one.